Can you believe we are almost through 2020? This year has been absolutely crazy. So, before I get into all of that, my name is Janae Johnson, and I am the founder and executive director of I Thrive Empowerment. And this year has it's been one for the books. Many of us are going to be old and gray, sitting, rocking in our chairs, talking about the year 2020. But here at I Thrive, we decided that we needed to do a little something during the epidemic to enrich, empower, educate, and transform the lives of girls ages 12 to 25. This summer, we went on a journey to figure out how could we make a difference during this time, and we came up with something called social justice summers, and it was actually amazing. We took important issues that we were experiencing during this crazy year and took 6 special girls on a journey to learn, decide, and create opinions for themselves. And during this process, along the way, they met some amazing women, including our visionaries. And at the end, they conducted interviews with women that are in positions that directly affect the social justice issues that they experienced. So, this is my little introduction into social justice summers. Please take a moment, listen to the interviews, give some feedback, let these girls know how amazing they did. And if you want to learn more about I Thrive Empowerment and how to get your daughter involved, we're going to keep on our mission to educate, empower, and transform the lives of girls ages 12 to 25. Our next interview will be with Mrs. Dominique and Miss Peyton. Tune in, take a look, leave some feedback, and share. I look forward to talking with you and maybe spending some time with your daughters, friends, or nieces. And let's change the world.
I would like to say my name is Dominique Jones, and of course that's Peyton Johnson. And I like to take a little of your time to ask like questions about how you feel about Justice and Policing Act.
Mm-hmm.
But first, I'm gonna let you in on a little information.
Okay.
We learned that the Justice and Policing Act is about should the law enforcement be held accountable for what they have their mistakes that they have made or have things that they have did within working. And I'll let Peyton explain her side or whatever about it.
Sure. So, based on what you said, are you asking me a question, or you're just letting me know, giving me information
Give me your
on your
information.
studies?
Yes.
Okay, sure. All right. Peyton?
Hi, how are you? Me and my partner Dominique Jones have went a little into this Justice and Policing Act and what it is. We have done a little research and to find out more information about it. So I learned that this act is all about, is pretty much about the incident that happened with George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a little information on what exactly happened with Mr. Floyd.
Sure.
So I would like to explain that. So George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin, 44, at Cup Foods, a local drugstore. It started on May 25th when George Floyd used a counterfeit $20 bill, and Mr. Floyd was a regular customer, but the owner, who knew Mr. Floyd, was not there when the incident happened. His employee was just following protocol. But when the police showed up, one of the police officers, Derek Chauvin, pinned Mr. Floyd to the ground, got him out of his car and pinned him to the ground, and stood on put his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And he said more than 20 times that he could not breathe. But Mr. Chavin did not listen, and George Floyd was passed away. So the problem here is that the question here is that should the law enforcement be held accountable of what happened, and should they make this a law that you cannot do that? So that's the question in the air. So is it okay if I ask you a few questions?
Absolutely. Did you want me to answer the first question first, or do you want to lay out all of your questions and then have me answer then?
Can you answer the first question? Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. They absolutely should be held accountable for causing the death of a nonviolent suspect. At the end of the day, we have laws that indicate you're innocent until proven guilty. And what happened to George Floyd, the police officers did not allow him what is called due process. And due process is giving him a day in court, either in front of a judge or a jury. But Chauvin, he made the decision. He was the arresting officer, the prosecutor, the judge, and the sentencer. And police officers do not, that is not covered in their job description. That is not something that they're able to do. So yes, they should be held accountable. Absolutely.
Yes.
I totally agree with you.
So my next question is, if you were in this situation, would you have acted differently? If yes, how?
If I were George Floyd or if I were a police officer?
Mr. Chapman.
Oh, if I were Mr. Chavin?
Well, if you
I
were
absolutely.
a police officer.
I absolutely would have handled things differently. I understand that life is given by God, and there is something called a civil code. And you see the civil code enacted when you see um, people driving down the road, and then some people slow up so another person can get in. That's just a civil law. That's just something that you do. It's not a requirement, but because of you recognize the humanity of another driver, then you enable them to get over. And so I believe that my actions would have been different. Number one, because I understand the value of life. I have a value for life. And I think that it is um, that is becomes a major issue when you're not recognized as being worthy of dignity and other things. And so he not only broke the law in that he murdered somebody, but he broke a civil code in not allowing this man the dignity of going through a due process.
Yeah. So I have two more questions. My second,
Sure.
well, my third question is, why do you think we have this act? Why do you think it's necessary?
It's necessary because what's happened in the US, and I think one of the first states that started it was the state of Wisconsin in 2011. There has been a systematic waiving of the Fourth Amendment right. And what the Fourth Amendment says is that there are no illegal searches or seizures. And let me read that for you. So you can see where the error came in and, and how it has impacted not only George Floyd, but a lot of the other people that you all studied this summer. And so when the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or the things to be seized. But when you have states and municipalities all over the country waiving the Fourth Amendment rights of people, that enables police officers to seize you. So that protection under the Constitution, when it's waived in municipalities around the country, when they say it's waived, that they said it's not necessary. We don't need that. And so what this act will do is it'll put it back in place because it has been waived in certain places. And so when you see around the country police officers just going after people and they're not doing, as it were, Mirandizing them, when they don't Mirandize, they're not doing it because it is not necessary, because they at some point waived that Fourth Amendment right in so that protection is then gone. And so I think the problem starts there, and the act is necessary to put in place what was removed. Okay.
So I have one final question, and then I will
Sure.
on to Dominique. So my final question goes along with a little paragraph of something to say. So they have not passed the bill yet to make this an actual actual legal, that you can't use the knee on neck method. Do you think the bill will be passed?
I think once we get the right people in place, what we have in the Senate and the House of Representatives, as well as the executive branch of our government system in DC, we have something that's called checks and balances. And what that means is we have groups of people who vote for their particular constituencies. And that's why I love the fact that you want to study law, and the reasons that you want to study law, because that puts you in a position to then speak not only for you, but for a lot of people who look like you. And I think I said at the beginning, if you're not on the table, then you're on the menu. I know that there are quite a few people who still hold seats in the Senate and in the House of Representatives who sit on the side of police officers, and they weren't necessarily moved by what occurred. But in looking at what happened, because there have been a couple of votes on the George Floyd, let's see here, give me 1 second. There's been a couple of votes. It was introduced in June, and the last vote, it went to the floor on the 20th of July, I believe. And so while it was introduced and it passed with a majority, when they got ready to vote on the bill, the nays won out. And so it will need to be reintroduced. My prayer and my hope is that it will pass, and that they can add some more language to this bill to ensure that it's one that stays, and that it trumps the waiving of the Fourth Amendment right.
Yes, so that is all for me. I'm going to be passing it on to my partner.
Sure.
Thank you for
Okay.
taking your time to talk with me, and that's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you, sweetheart. You're so smart. I'm so excited about what God's going to do in your life.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Miss Simpson, I would like to ask you, it's like three little questions based on what we were learning or whatever. And yeah. So I would like to know, do you think there should be a file publicly available that shows the officers' misconduct at previous jobs or what, like the job that they're at right now?
Absolutely. I think if that were in place, maybe what Chauvin did in killing George Floyd, it may not have gotten to that because he would have either not gotten the job or been in a position where he was given desk duty. But given the number of times that he's been complained against, the information in his report, his HR file. I think given that, steps should have been taken in order to ensure that what he had done previously could not have been done, and George Floyd could possibly still be alive.
Can I get your opinion as to why you feel this way?
Absolutely. When you consider, I'm a lot older than everybody on here. And when you consider um, going for a job and you send your resume, um, and then they call and check your references, what that does is it speaks to my character. It speaks to what I've done before. And decisions are made as it relates to me and the positions I hold, not based upon their one meeting of me, but their one meeting of me, what they see in my resume, as well as what they ascertain from people that they gather references from. And I think, not taking that into consideration with Chauvin, the public at large was, at stake.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you agree or disagree that law enforcement should be held accountable for their actions, such as taken to trial or sentenced to time in prison?
Absolutely. When you commit acts of murder, um, and it was clearly murder, when he was at a place where he was, posing no threat, which at no time did he pose a threat. It just should not have happened. And the law is for the lawless, and having a badge does not exempt you from prosecution. Um, they are public servants, and growing up, that's what we knew them to be. And so this militarized policing that we have going on right now is unacceptable. And so what has happened is the African American community has been put in a position where the very way that we live our lives has now been criminalized. And when you consider the people who have voted and decided that there was no need for the Fourth Amendment right, many of those people making those decisions are not African Americans. And they don't understand um, the necessity for it and why we need it as protection.
Totally. So, well, that's all the questions that I have. So, if you have anything that you would like to tell me personally or tell Peyton about what you do as your career and or what you have did as a career previously, you can tell me.
Okay, absolutely. So I've worked in advocacy, lobbying, and public policy probably for the past 11 years now. And it started really with advocating for my children. I served on the advisory board for curriculum selection for um, Copley Fairlawn Schools. That's in the state of Ohio. And what that did was that gave me an opportunity to speak to a suburban system regarding things that were necessary for African Americans and non-white students. And so I really started my advocacy there. I then ran for a political office in the state of Ohio, for which I won. And so I served on that political party. But when you do that, they have you, when they swear you in, they have you commit to the particular party for which you ran on. At that particular time, I was on a party that I am no longer with. I don't care to say which one that is. But okay, I'll tell you which one it is. Previously, I was an elected official with the Republican Party in the state of Ohio. And there were a couple of reasons why I chose to be in the Republican Party. And one of which was because I'm a Christian. And so I allowed myself to be polarized by the information that was being fed to me regarding, various issues concerning that, such as abortion and, some other things that the Bible speaks against. During the course of my time in the Republican Party, which wasn't a long time, I held a position for a couple of years because no one owns me. And so I made a decision to vote differently. And what brought me to voting differently and deciding that neither side owns me, the Republicans don't own me and the Democrats don't own me. But what I found in my study of the Word of God, as well as at how I've walked throughout my life, I find that I lean more towards the Democratic Party. And I lean towards the Democratic Party because of it's more congruent with what the Bible says we should be doing and how we should be functioning. Not one of legalism, but one of love. And so I decided that I may have some conservative views and values, but I'm liberal with my love. And the Bible is a book of love, not a book of law.
Totally, yes. I totally agree with you.
Absolutely.
Well,
And
that's pretty much it.
okay.
Oh, well, excuse me.
No, you're fine, sweetheart.
Yes, that is all the information we have. Thank you so much for meeting with us today.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, I enjoyed you all as well, and I'm excited about the next generation. And I really would love for you guys to stay on social justice and stay on top of the issues. What's happening in your community? What's happening in your school? You guys can affect change where you are right now. And so when you see some things that you don't like or that you don't understand, by all means, speak to your parents, speak to your mentors here with I Thrive, and make sure that you continue to thrive. And I'm looking forward to all that you guys are going to accomplish. And when I'm an old lady looking up and I see the two of you, I remember those two girls. So this is good stuff. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you inviting me, Janae. And you guys have some awesome girls and you're doing a great work. So keep up the good work, everybody.